Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the monthly webinar from Nebu. This month, we're going to be looking at the practical steps taken to automate your market research processes. Looking at how you can increase your efficiencies here, looking at the story of Nebu through the collect, manage, utilize process that we've set up in the first place. The webinar will take approximately 40 to 45 minutes. There'll be a little Q&A session at the end. Just typing some comments on there in your sort of YouTube channel while you're watching. And this will be available on the YouTube channel after the broadcast, alongside all previous webinars. And I might mention a couple of webinars as we go through today, ones you might want to look out for or follow up on watching. We're going to be diving into some detail here today. So if you need to adjust the broadcasting there, you can look on the sort of options when watching the frame and make it sort of the high definition on there. So you can really see the detail as we're being broadcast, see some of sort of where we're clicking around the screens and the buttons and options there as well. So what we're going to sort of briefly run through today is looking at how you can collect data for various different purposes, different projects, looking at this using sort of Dub Interviewer in there, how this data is then sort of pushed into the data hub, how you can have multiple streams of data coming in there, merging those together, how you set up those connectors, and how you can then sort of use that data, create new data sets, visualizations, and use all of that information either directly in a reporter, in the hub itself, or pushing that information out through sort of APIs to third parties. So we're going to be working through the sort of the workflow process. Now we're going to be looking at sort of different aspects of our sort of data suite, primarily focusing on the data collection in Nebu's Dub Interviewer. We're looking at the data management aspect of it in the data hub, so looking at how you can manipulate that data, merge data sets together, define new data sets to sort of promote or look at the insights you're trying to get into. And then what we're going to do is look at going through some of the systems on there as well, and looking at how we flow through the webinar there, and pushing data out to Nebu Reporter. With Nebu Reporter, obviously we've showed the suite before, and we've seen some of the background information here. The hosted dialer, the panel management system, all part of the Nebu suite. We will briefly touch on some of those extra data sources that come in. So the social media, the sampling systems in there as well, and look at how that data is pushed out to reports and dashboarding. But the primary focus for today is looking at the actual Nebu suite. So as we go through sort of just say the collect aspect of it in Dub Interviewer, moving through into the management of it in Nebu Data Hub, and the processing, promotion of that data, the using of that data through reports in Nebu Reporter. So when we say sort of collect, what we're looking at is really looking at how we pull in that different survey data for different purposes on there, across different modes. And really looking at how that can be sort of pulled together and visualized and gain those insights from them. And we'll show you a couple of examples of some of the sort of surveying type of things you can do, looking at NPS scoring, the sort of simple customer satisfaction or customer feedback surveys as well, up to some of the more complex things like mystery shopping and product testing, and some of the sort of complex MR which we're traditionally involved in. And this can be across different modes. So you can see it in telephone interviewing, web interviewing, face-to-face as well. And all of those information sources can be merged together in in the one area. And that will be then, how you manage that data, going through some of the steps you can take to make the data more user-friendly, how you can automate these, how we can set up some of the cleaning processes, pulling in sample, running through some of those sort of auto processes that you'd like to have in place to be able to match different sample files together, recode perhaps some of that sample file into your standard formats, have that coded back for delivery of the data, and just the sort of the whole process of managing and manipulating data to make it easier for you. And then the sort of utilization, as we said, being able to have that data presented in easy to digest fashion, to be able to pick out those insights quickly, to be able to look at what that data is telling you, if there's any sort of feedback during the process, so you can be very agile in the way you implement your surveys and adapt them as that information comes in. Now, we've sort of looked at different webinars before on the different aspects there as well. So, this is today we're going to try and join all of that up. But if you need more detail on any of those aspects, there's plenty of webinars there, and we can review them on the YouTube channel and look in more detail at the different steps there. So looking at collect, as we said, there's different sort of uses that can be here. So we're just going to show you a couple of examples in the screens there and see the different ways you can present that data, bearing in mind that these are all sort of visually available on there. The surveys are fully responsive, conducted for different devices, and through all the different devices you can use the sort of the one script for that, pull all that information together. So just jumping in to have a quick look at some of the surveys, what we would see is something like an NPS survey where you've got your sort of scoring at the top and a couple of open verbatim box ready for your tests. You can jump through those, and these are all sort of fully responsive, and you can play around with them, change the sizes, and it'll all sort of change about as it's needed on the different screens. So fully adaptive there as well. Obviously, different look and feel on them as well. You can get quite creative with that. So you can have different styles that are being shown, and just really collect the information you want, jump through the surveys as they're needed, and have different buttons, different visualizations on there. But we've gone into more detail in this previously in our webinar about the sort of award-winning surveys on there and how you script those together. So advise you to have a look at that one and get some more detail on how the surveys are set up, how you can sort of best engage your respondents in there. So with collect system, then what we want to try and do once we've got all that data together, we need to then push that into our hub. How we're going to manage it, how we're going to add on the extra sources on there. But how do we actually go about doing that? How can we jump through to the different systems and link this all up together? Now, in practical terms, what this means is jumping into our sort of our managed frames area, the area of Nebu where you can manage your projects. So we just jump into there. I'll load this one up, and when we go to our sort of external services part, we're looking at the Nebu Data Hub tab, and we can select the projects. So multiple different projects as well can all be selected, and these we're going to we can link to an existing project or to a new Data Hub project. So I select my project. I'm going to link to an existing one into my sort of Nebu Data Hub project I called there. And if I link that, are you sure you want to do it? Yes. Yes, we're going to do this. So it's all setting up. And you'll see now there's my sort of project all linking in. It's initializing. So it's building the link there. And you'll see that we've got different sync process on other projects above, and when the last sync happened on there. So just through that simple setup, I'm now pushing all of my collected data from that one survey into my Data Hub. So now I'm going to feed that data in there. That's going to be a continuous feed, and the data will be sort of continuously synchronized as new information is brought in, as new data is collected into my survey. And with this, it just makes it very easy to add multiple surveys into one project on there as well. So you can merge all your different data sets into your data hub just through the simple setup there. Which then brings us on to sort of how we look at managing this data. We've now set up a very quick link there to get our collected data, our survey data into the hub. We want to now look at what we're going to do with it. So, what are we going to sort of manage it? What can we do in the hub? Now, some of the clients of Nebu that are using the hub already are using this for cleaning up sample files. You get in those sample files from various different sources. They need to be reformatted so that they fit exactly the same systems, or changing the code so that if one supplier is giving you 0, 1 and 0, 2 for male and female, and another's giving you 1 and 2, and another's giving you M and F, all these different codes that come in, then you want to be able to process that, make sure that your code frame is going to be the same before pushing it into the survey. So you take out a lot of that sort of manual routines there. Different clients will provide it in certain formats and what their frames are, and how those sort of sample suppliers, how they code their different data and different sort of data sets they're going to provide to you. So you can set up rules on if it comes from this place, then run this cleaning process. And quite a few clients are doing that on those sort of tracking studies, regular ongoing studies that happen, and they're getting those data sets come in. You might want to look at some of these sort of deduplications on there as well, and running some rules of when sample can be available, or when that data is going to be pushed out to different reports, and put sort of different blocking conditions on there. The deduplication, as I said, if you're buying from several different sample suppliers, there may be people that are registered to more than one panel, so you don't want to see the same people and load them up and have different invites there just because they came from 2 different sources. So again, it's very useful to be able to do that. You can look at deriving subsamples there from, perhaps splitting up all those multiple sample files and pushing them out to different projects, perhaps inviting them in different modes and using the hub to trigger off those invites. And if we're sort of pushing them into different projects, you can feed those surveys, push in different data, have it triggered off at different times and events that are happening as that data is being collected. So perhaps one survey, as it's feeding that information into the hub, is being processed and pushed out to another survey. So there's different ways of sort of how you manage and manipulate your data there. And what we've seen through sort of different projects, with our clients, they can be quite creative in there. So just sort of, a couple of examples on what some of the customers doing there. So, Mark, or a customer that brings in a lot of different sample files. They do a cleaning and auto delivery process there for a net promoter scoring system on that. And it's quite a sort of a complex system there. There's a lot of layering in there, a lot of recoding, a lot of sort of quarantining of samples so that they've got rules on when that can be delivered, how that can be processed. And those sample files are coming in and need to be sort of cleaned. They're in various different formats with different suppliers on there. We've got DJS doing a similar type of thing on there as well, and they were the sort of subject of a white paper that was published, and that white paper was available on our website, and was also presented at the ASC conference. So you can find on the ASC website a copy of the presentation there as well. But we were looking here at a similar type of thing, a customer satisfaction study, but through multiple channels of delivery and invites, multiple channels of collecting that data and feeding that all in sort of to one delivery of a report, a CSAT report on there. We have so check your surface, doing a lot of cleaning and real-time sampling in there. So as new information comes into their system, they're sort of processing it and delivering that straight out to reporting systems. and GDC, who do a lot of processing of the data to feed the Soho reports, Soho software system there, and having as a CRM system, they're able to engage with a third party to get some of their reporting there, and to sort of fulfill some of their requirements for monitoring the interviewers, finding out what information has happened there, how things have been conducting, looking at their field work, and managing multiple call centers they have around the globe. So just a couple of examples to sort of spark a bit of a thought there, a bit of detail on how you can use the data hub there as well. But whilst those are sort of processing examples, we always have to remember that there's visualization that's built into data hub. So pushing that information in a very stimulating fashion, a very easy to interpret fashion, you can build up a lot of the visualization in the hub. And this can include things like word clouds, derived from either the data sets or from social media feeds, putting in those social media feeds and looking at some of the sort of verbatim analysis, picking out how words are connected together, using that also to drive your sentiment analysis, looking at the sort of emotions on there as well, the positive, negative feedback that's coming in, and trying to do some comparisons with that as well. So when we're sort of jumping into the hub, and I'm going to sort of switch over there and show in a little bit of detail on how those are put together, the types of information you're available there for you. So when we jump across to the hub, and we're just going to sort of log into the system there. So here we've got my my project. I've got various different data sets on here as well, and these are all sort of driving different aspects of that, how we're pulling in that information. We've got, here's my my data that's been driven in from the survey collection survey, that link we built in managed frames, pushing it into here. So this is where my information is coming in. And when we look at some of the sort of the details of the project, I've got a couple of the sort of widgets and things I've created here as well. We also used a widget so we could see how this is strung together. So, here's my dub interviewer, and there's the project that's feeding into my data hub project. And I've got my Facebook feed, which is then being broken down into several different systems here as well, the different R scripts that I'm running across them and what I'm going to produce. So from my Facebook feed, I'm bringing in, the 100 records at a time, cleaning them, doing some sort of language detection for different languages. And then from that sort of language detected file, I'm going to, and cleaned file, I'm going to break down into different, widgets and some analysis on those as well. So it's giving me some extra information there. Now, looking at the different data sets we've got, if we want to sort of, look at some of the scripts that are running, we can obviously schedule these, so I can set up how frequent this is going to happen or have it just triggered as an event. An example of some of the sort of data sets here as well, where we're going to push these data sets to, where my source data is. And if I need to sort of jump into different R libraries, R scripting on there as well, I can launch my own GitHub account and copy those sort of R language in there as well. I can jump into a bit of a sort of a manual on there as well. And on here, we've sort of, if I look at the available R libraries, these are the R libraries I've already built. So any of the script I've already built and saved in my own sort of data hub system, they're all available here. So I can just quickly source some of that extra scripting and reuse that in different projects. So once I've put that in, I can then edit my R script and make it quite easy to sort of manipulate the data and look at what's happening there as well. Now, all of these sort of information, there may be on things like the sentiment analysis here, where we're actually going to push out a different data set here and actually sort of create a HTML. So we're building a HTML widget here. And as you run these scripts and they're being built, then all of that data is put into my storage system. Now, through the sort of the storage system, that enables us to then look at that information, look at how we've how we've got through there, and how we're going to use that information. So when we've got the sort of the data in the data hub, we've looked at it there. We now want to sort of push that into the reporting system. We want to be able to use those visualizations in a easy to manage area. We need to be able to, take all of that information that's in the hub. Maybe you don't want a lot of people being able to log in and manipulate it, and you want to give it to them in a simpler fashion. So how do you connect then the data in the data hub and push that out into your reporting system? Well, as we're looking at on the sort of dynamic table, as we're looking in the storage here as well. So once those R scripts have been up and run, we can then go over each of the different either HTML pages or picture images that have come out, and we see here then we can hover over here, and this can be shared with Nebu Reporter. Now you can look at this in a open it up, look at it in an extra HTML. So I've got my own HTML page there, and I can play around with it, see what it looks like. I can download it as an image, and then perhaps I'm embedding that into an offline report on there. You can produce a link. So if I just get the public link here, you'll see here's a HTTPS link on there as well. So again, open that up and it gives me the link, but I can use that link and embed that perhaps into different reports. Or we can share it directly with the Nebu Reporter system. So we have the sharing option on here as well. And that means when I build my Nebu report, I can look at the information that's here and load that into my dashboard. I can put that in as an information source for the viewer of my dashboard alongside some of the information that we collect directly from the survey. So that's taking whilst you can take all of your multiple data sets into the data hub and push those out to different areas, you can also put them into combined sets in the Nebu Reporter using your survey tool as well as some of the hub information. So having different sources pushed in to that hub area. In addition, you can also look at sort of building some publications on there as well. So you can take any of the data sets you have and you can publish that data. As you'll see, directly to a Google Sheet, publish it as an SPSS file, which can then be pulled up instantly into SPSS with all of your meta tags, all the data information there as well, or as a web service. So if you want a continuous feed as a web service, we can choose any of the data sets that we may have on there as well, publish that. And as that's being published in as a web service there, we get the URL, the link there as well, but we can also change, the different formats that are being issued in that API. So, build your own API, publishing that in, linking that into the third-party systems. So it's very simple again to get access to all of the information, all of that analysis that you've been doing in the hub in different products, linking it to different sort of third-party tools that you may want to do further for that, or into Nebu Reporter. So then that means we're now looking at how we use that information. We've got the system running. We've taken all of that data into the hub and done some processing of it. We've pushed that out into sort of to the Nebu Reporter or to the third-party APIs. And what we want to look at is, Nebu Reporter, what think people are doing with that as well. So different clients are delivering the data to that, so directly data source on there. They're delivering some of the feedback information on, some of the CSAT information that's highlighted to them, doing different NPS scoring on there as well. So providing feedback on, how the company, the product is being perceived by their clients and where those results are coming in. So if we have a quick look at sort of the report, going into Nebu Reporter, and again, Nebu Reporter, we've done webinars on here as well, showing how you've put those together. So I won't go into too much detail on how we can build up different surveys and reports. But what I will look at is, when we are sort of jumping into Nebu Reporter itself, we want to show you here is how you can add in those data widgets on there. Now, unlocking the report, we have to look at the data source. And the data source here, this is our sort of project that we set up, our survey for collecting the information. This is the same one we linked to the Data Hub. So when we were in Manage Frames, putting that link of this project into the Data Hub, this then has that connection through. So your survey is connected to the Data Hub, which is then connected to the Nebu Reporter. So this is connecting our sort of our Dub Interviewer survey, but also because of that connection between Dub Interviewer and Data Hub, you can then look at the Data Hub sources in here as well. Which means when I come to sort of add a widget, and I want to look at adding a widget, and I decide to add in a Nebu Data Hub widget, then as I sort of go to look at those, it pulls up automatically the information that I've put into the Data Hub. So there's my latest picture, the text clustering or the collapsible widget. So I can then use that. If I select that one, there's the hub in there. I can preview it. So again, we see the same one on here that we see, the same interaction of that. And I can decide that, that's the one I want to put in. So, okay, I've added that into my system. I'll just scroll down because it'll be on the bottom here. And here we are. We've now added that in at the bottom. I'll just open that up a bit. So we get a nice bigger system there as well. You can see we've got that sort of as the web page was, and it's all, as soon as I lock it up, that's all going to be clickable on there as well. So I can actually then, drive through the same processes. And I'm showing that information in the hub. As you can see, we've put in all different widgets on here as well. Once I unlock it, you'll be able to see hovering over these are Nebu Data Hub feeds. So we're looking at, how words are linked together on some of the analysis, looking at the sort of emotions that are displayed throughout that verbatim text, having a feed of the Facebook information there as well, doing some of the sentiment analysis, scoring on the positives and negatives, and sort of building up my sort of Facebook information there, the word clouds, different how those words are linked together on those. And we can hover on these. This is one we set up to have counts hovered over the top. So as you hover over it, it'll give you a little count of the information that's coming in. So we saw the linking of those widgets, adding a widget in, pulling up the Nebu Data Hub one on there as well, and seeing the information, those widgets that are available, that can all be sort of added in very quickly on there. Now, if I just switch back to the hub, and I'm just going to sort of revoke, the information on this one, so that that one's been revoked on there as well. Now, if I come to add on the widget on here, that has now sort of been removed. So I can't get to that access on there as well. That widget's been taken off, so I don't have the access there. So you have control over all of that data you're building up, you're managing within the hub and wanting to push out to different publications. You can revoke those at any time. You can start changing them, and therefore, whoever's building that report for you only can access the information that you want them to. They can only display that information there as well. As you saw though, with the report, you can, looking at these are direct sort of widgets that come in from the survey themselves. So you don't have to have everything processed in the Data Hub. You can build a report just containing some of that survey information. And we've shown in webinars how you can do that, how you can link to the different sort of different surveys, so you can drive off another survey directly from the report, so people can see what that survey is about. So seeing how that information is generated from there. And so there's loads of different sort of ways of building up your Nebu Reporter to ensure that you've got the types of information, the types of quick insights presented to you in a very accessible fashion, being able to see what's happening on there. And remembering that all of that information is updated in real time based on the running of the data hub or that information that's collected in your survey. So just reviewing over what we've seen, we've looked at the collect, manage, utilize areas there as well. We've looked at how you can get your different surveys in different survey formats, the type of information that go in, how you link that to the manage frames area, using that to sort of connect the systems together, looking at the data hub itself, being able to sort of flow through the managing of the process, taking some of the data, recoding it, deduplicying it, adding on those rules, merging it with different data sets, pulling in external sources to that to enhance and enrich the data you're providing, then linking those, publishing those so that they're available in the hub or as APIs to third-party systems, and joining all of that flow together. So we've gone through the collect, the manage, the utilize of all the data. So that's sort of wrapping up. Remind you again that we have different webinars that look in more detail at the different topics there. There are previous webinars about the information available on the system, so you can see how that's collected, how that's the managed frames are putting together. But what I'm going to do now is going to just sort of go through some of the questions that have been put into the YouTube feedback and see if I can answer some of those as well. So someone's just asked, once I have my collected data shared with the hub, how do I perform that cleaning setting rules? Also, does it mean that the rules can be automated? Yeah, the setting of the cleaning and the rules on there as well, that's using some of the R library in there or writing your own R scripts so that you can manipulate that data. Having the schedule the database there, being able to set a schedule so you can run every so often, new rules on there as data is being fed in, or if it's a triggered event, if you're uploading a file on a daily basis, then you can use that as the trigger to run off those different R scripts and perform those tasks. The rules can be set so that if it finds a certain column or is looking for certain information and does a match on it, then do X, Y, and Z. You can have all of those processed in there as well. So there's a lot of systems in there to sort of help you with that. There's a lot of libraries already available, and GitHub itself has over 10,000 different R scripts that can be instantly grabbed from the library itself and brought into the data hub to run that through. So yeah, the automation of that, either on a schedule or being triggered, is all inbuilt into the hub, so that will help perform those as well. So I'm saying about DGS project, quite a complicated one, multiple touch points on there as well. How long does it take to prepare a project? Well, that's how long is a piece of string type of question as well. It will depend very much on not only the complexity of the survey, which again can be broken down into several different smaller chunks and fed through on auto sampling. It can also be sort of set up so you've got multiple different invite channels there as well. But what you're really doing is looking at building up a sort of 1, 2, 3 surveys, however many you want, fairly simple. And we'd say to keep them fairly simple because when you're breaking down into an omni-channel one, you can skip the types of questions that aren't related to that particular mode or focus on particular areas to make it easier. If someone's going to be invited via text message and maybe complete that online. You want to keep it short and simple. You only want a quick NPS score on there. So it's maybe 3-4 question survey on there. But you're getting the richness of that because you're trying to pull it in, maybe some more sort of verbatim types comments on there as well. You're pulling in the scoring. You're going to have some of that assignment next to it on how that information feeds in, how it fits with the types of feedback you want to give in your reporter. So driving those through. But a lot of it will depend on the complexity, how many different data sources you're getting, how much cleaning it needs to be done, how much merging of data needs to happen there as well. And the experience, the more experience you have on setting up different projects and processing different information, then the quicker it becomes. Sorry, I can't put a sort of a specific time frame on that. It's one of those that really does depend on multiple factors in there. The hub about automating research and visualization. Well, it's good question there as well, and it's part of the reason we looked at using R as the basis for building up the hub. We've talked about this in previous webinars as well, but just as a recap, the R language has been used as a script for both processing data, so manipulating data, altering data, and for building visualization libraries there. It's primarily a sort of a tool that was built up in academia, used to do a lot of the statistical analysis, used as a alternative to SPSS, but because it had some of that data processing power in there as well, it meant that they could use the R language to alter the data, manipulate it, reformat it into the way that was best needed to then use that data and start visualizing it. So R itself has a rich library there that can do a lot of the processing, a lot of the visualization you want, and it means that you've got that information there. And just one thing on there, with the sort of video happening there, looking at the complexity of that project. The project we showed, it did have a lot of different data sets, a lot of division there as well, but we actually built those into various smaller steps so they're easier to reuse, they're easy to look at, and it's part of the agile concept that Nebu puts on there, that we try and advise people to do. Having smaller steps, being able to break down that process flow into smaller areas so that if you need to alter something, you're not rewriting loads of scripts there. So whilst, yes, we did have a lot of branching on there, a lot of steps in it, really what we were taking was just taking in a single Facebook feed, processing it, looking at, let's take sort of just the English language Facebook feed we've got on there as well, look at certain words and present those in a visual format. So there was only sort of 4 steps really on there. We broke them down into a few more so that when people are looking at the scripts, it's easier to understand them, it's easier to see the different steps you've gone through, and it's easy to manipulate one of those steps. Perhaps we want to change the language on there, and instead of having to rewrite or copy and adjust a whole script that does 7 or 8 things, we can just look at that one area and make the adjustment there. So yes, there was a lot of data sets on there. It was doing a lot of things, but that was more so that we can show you, as we did on the dashboard at the end, 5 or 6 different outcomes from that, 5 or 6 different insights, counting and measuring different aspects of that. So it's that sort of, yes, it can look complicated, but when you break it down into smaller steps, it's easy to understand. It's easier to run through, and easier to reuse just that small snippet of code again. So it helps there. Well, I think that's sort of all of the questions there. Again, as we always say, if you need to sort of come in and ask for any more sort of questions, contact us. Feel free to sort of reach out to anyone in Nebu. We're always happy to help you talk over, what you may want to do for your projects, how you may want to manipulate your data and run through it, and how you can build up those different workflows using the different sets of tools that are available to you to really sort of automate your process, really get into the details of the insight, and present that in a very sort of visual fashion, a very easy to understand information there. So just remains for me to thank you for your attention again. Just a reminder that, on our website, we do have a sort of resource area where you can download different sort of brochures, white papers, some of these sort of case studies on what's happened there. And, you can review the webinars on our YouTube channel. So thank you again for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.